Meeting to order. This is the March 27, 2017 Fond du Lac Board of Education regular meeting. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Preister.
Here.
Hayes here. Jones.
Here.
Nat.
Here.
Strand.
Here.
Uselman.
Here.
Churchella.
Here. We have a quorum present, and prior to the pledge, we will have a moment of silent reflection, after which the pledge will be led to us by students from Lakeshore Elementary School. Thank you. And if you'd like to step up and lead us in the pledge, that'd be great. Well, thank you for being here tonight, and good job on the pledge. And we have Principal Steinbarth here.
Yes.
And
So this
what
is
can you
our-
tell us about this great contingent we've got?
This is our Lakeshore Coding Club that was started by Mrs. Marcianda and Mr. Schreiber here after getting the Acuity grant. So they're going to kind of show you a few things that they've been doing all year long on Fridays. And I'll let Mrs. Marcianda kind of talk a little bit more about it.
Welcome.
Hello.
Okay. Well, we have a tiny slideshow. First, before we do anything, we want to make sure that we thank Acuity for the grant, because without them, most of what we did this year would not be possible. Mr. Schreiber wrote a grant for a Spark Learning Lab, and we've been using it to its fullest potential every Friday this year. Donors choose. We had 18 donors. Most of them were anonymous. They worked together to get us some more things, 2 iPads and some other different coding items, so we can diversify and make sure that they're getting exposed to coding in many different ways. And then the PTO gave us $500 this year. So without them, we couldn't be doing what we're doing right now. So just a little bit of a background, and then we're going to invite you to take a taste of coding. Mr. Schreiber and I, we would like to expand our students' access to coding options by providing an eclectic, diverse experience. And we want to share our passion and our joy of computer science and computer coding with children, because we know that it is the way of the future, and it is the way that our factories are going to be run. You're going to have to be able to code. So we started this fall. We meet most Fridays. It's very student-directed, so it's student-led. We kind of coach and facilitate. And to be honest with you, the learning is very reciprocal. We learn more from the kids than we have to offer them. I've learned so much. And we started with 40 students, and close to 80 show up on Friday mornings. So it's been a lot of fun. Okay, here's some pictures of what we've been doing. Our art teacher, when she's not at Parkside, on the Fridays that she's with us, she does work with us, and she's had them paint with the Spheros. Right here, these 2 usually do Scratch, and they're here tonight to share that. And then we also have the Spheros here. These girls like to play hide and seek. Sometimes they make their own games. One more picture. This was the Hour of Code. We did participate in the Hour of Code. And there's Mrs. Uselman right there. And so right now what we'd like to do is just take the last few minutes of Lakeshore's time and invite you to come out, and we'll have the kids come out to the middle. We do have one coding game that we really can't move because it's got little tiny blocks. It's called Bloxels, and you can just come right on over and check that out. But the kids, you can walk up to the kids and see what they're all doing. They're all doing something different. So come on out.
Very good.
my junk. So this is you?
Together when we were waiting.
What was it? It came out.
Daddy long one. Awesome. There one. It's right on my ankle.
That's the one you're controlling?
Menus of instruction, right? Drag the what you want to It's not quite.
They do things to make these things work. It's all that logic is. I take a water. You want one? Are you fine? You want to show me what you're doing, honey?
First, it's got to be one of the teaching parts.
So they know that it's to go back and try to fix it.
That's a good thing here. You can do it again and again.
Gracias. Oh, you have it. Always and his brother, Pancho. When he was in
I like how it shakes.
It's an fifth grader at Sabre. I think he's at Sabre Jersey at Tyson. Yep. That was his mom because that was only Pancho, and then Francisco was like Pancho, and then Chewy was born. He's been 4 since he, well, yeah, he must have been 2 or 3, I don't remember. This is, I don't remember. We were at the party, but I got invited to in the, oh, I should have.
So, Miss Marchianda, I asked you off microphone, but what age of kids are doing this?
Kindergarten through 5th grade.
Kindergarten through 5th grade. That is so impressive.
And we want to thank you for giving us this opportunity, and you're always welcome on Friday mornings to come hang out with us. I just want to remind you to watch where you're walking because there are little robots all over the floor, but you're always more than welcome to come to Lakeshore. We would love to have you play with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. This is a really good display and demonstration of technology. And keep at it. Thank you for being here again.
Thank you, guys.
great learning
Great
there.
job.
Yeah, good job there, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Come again.
Yes, thanks for being here today. And they made it look so easy and so natural and
It is at their age, though.
At
They're
their
just-
age, it
that's-
is.
Yeah, second nature to them.
Next in our agenda, we go to announcements and communications. And tonight, we do have a Fondy Pride Award, which will recognize Renee Nolan for being named the 2017 Wisconsin Educational Media and Technology Association Excellence Award winner. Renee, you have to step forward and get to take your Fondy Pride Award.
Yes.
So, tell us a little bit about this award and
Sure.
what got you to it.
WIMTA, or acronym for Wisconsin Education Media Technology Association, has been around for a long time. Mostly it focused on library media specialists, but as that role has slowly changed, they've added the educational technology thing over the last many years. And I was honored this year, totally surprised, didn't expect it, as the Excellence Award for amazing things that we're doing in our district that I have learned so much in the last 6 years. I think this has been probably the most enriching experience I've had in the last 6 years. Every day I challenge myself to learn something, but I couldn't be where I am without my former team of ed tech coaches as well as my current team. So teachers are doing amazing things. It's always fun to see everything that they're doing and sharing with others what they're doing in the classrooms.
I mean, your work has touched a lot of kids in this district and will continue to do so. It's very impressive.
Thanks.
And
Thank
you. It's
we're
fun.
seeing technology in action
It's-
at the grade
yes,
schools.
It's fun. And this is really Ed Schreiber and Gina Marchianda's deal. I always watch them, and I need to learn it yet. So, but it's amazing the things that they do, and it's that engagement piece. You know, technology isn't about replacing a teacher. It's really enhancing it and getting kids engaged and just thinking differently and being innovative in the classroom.
Right,
Yeah.
well said.
Yeah.
And if you want to go front and center, we'll hand you your award.
Congratulations, Renee. Very nice.
Official photographer.
What are we gonna do?
Oh, you'll be fine. All right, congratulations. Thank you, Renee. We're good, peeps.
Congratulations, Renee.
Next announcement is that following adjournment of the regular meeting, the board will convene in a workshop to discuss the shared leave program proposal and also to discuss Chapter 5 of the Key Work of School Boards book. Now on the agenda is our first audience to visitors and delegations. If anyone wishes to address the board on a school district-related matter, I invite them to please step forward and do so. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, Brianna.
My name is Brianna Burgess. I am a junior at Fond du Lac High School, and I identify as transgender, specifically non-binary, so neither a boy nor a girl. And recently I met with Dr. Siebert and Marion Sheridan, and we discussed what we were going to do about issues with bathrooms. And today I asked one of my teachers if they would be willing to unlock this staff bathroom in that pod for me, because I didn't feel comfortable going in the girls' or boys' restroom. And they said that they could not, and they were told not to open the bathrooms for students. And I was forced to go into the girls' bathroom, and it was a humiliating experience because there were other people in there, and they knew I didn't fit in there. I knew I myself did not fit in there. So why can't we use the staff bathrooms now?
Well, that sounds like a question that administratively will be addressed. That's not a policy matter per se for the board. And
It was
if-
more of a question directed to Dr. Siebert and
Okay.
Marion Sheridan.
And that's something that they can.
We can follow up with you on.
Follow
Sure.
up with you on. If there's something that can be accommodated or handled in that fashion, they'll do it, I'm sure. And, continue to work with them and communicate with them. When you have these instances happen, we need to know about that then too. Okay. Do you have any further, Brianna?
No.
Okay. Thank you for coming. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board? Please step forward.
Hi.
Good
I'm
evening.
Rob Brown. Junior at Fond du Lac High School. I just wanted to speak about thank you for meeting with us, Dr. Siebert, Marion Sheridan. But I would like to say that there was this immediate accommodation sort of clause that you wanted to know what you could do right now to help some of these students and accommodate to them accordingly. And it sounds like that the administration is falling short in doing that. And I was wondering what you could do to fix that, because you did state that things have to change step by step, and steps had to be taken immediately so you could address the issue as a whole. And you wanted to know what needed to be changed immediately, and those issues were addressed to you. I just wanted to know why the denial to the bathroom, the staff bathroom, would be allowed at this point, given that we had that meeting, and that's one of the accommodations that could be made at this point in time. I just wanted to pose that question to you or anyone on the board or in the administration.
Sure. That, may I?
Go right ahead.
That would be, again, administrative related, so Mrs. Sheridan and I can certainly follow up with you and the group as we had planned to do.
Correct.
And take that into consideration.
But following up at this point is very frustrating for some students, and I know you can understand that. So an action needs to take place as soon as possible, and sometimes you can't we'll follow up on that for an answer at this point, because action needs to be taken to protect these students, and accommodations were promised to be made, or steps were promised to be made and have not.
Okay. Well, like you've heard Dr. Siebert,
Mhm.
there will be continued dialogue, I'm sure, and continued follow-up. What that leads to, I don't know. The board does board policy. The administrators do administrative day-to-day things within the buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And for now, they're aware of the situation and the circumstances. Obviously, no one on this board was aware of whatever took place today,
Mhm.
and now they are.
Okay.
So I appreciate that being brought to light.
Mhm.
And we'll continue to work with our administration, to work with you and others.
Mhm.
And, hopefully we can reach a resolution.
And
that-
I know Dr. Siebert has a copy of the Cardinal Comms. I don't know if anyone else does.
Not yet.
No, okay. I have a couple in my car. I'll bring in
Okay.
when you adjourn
Thank you.
for your workshop, and I'll get those to you and the administration. See how many I have. But
Great.
all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Do you have anything further?
No.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board on a school district-related matter? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the audience to visitor and delegations portion. Move forward to the approval of the consent resolution agenda. Board members have been provided background material and information on each item, or have discussed it at a previous meeting. These items will be acted upon with one vote without discussion, and any board member may remove an item from the agenda. That item would then be discussed and voted on separately under the agenda item of individually considered resolutions. Could I have a motion for the consent agenda, please?
I move to approve the consent agenda as follows. Human Resources, retirements, Lisa Birschbach, art teacher at Fond du Lac High School, effective June 8th, 2017, and Laura Hoffman, first grade teacher at Rosano Elementary School, effective June 8th, 2017.
I'll second that. Motion and a second. And Ms. Simon, we have two longtime employees, short-time employees?
Pardon?
We have some retirements here,
Correct?
longtime employees who are,
Laura, at the completion of this year, would have 30 years, and Lisa Bierschbach, our teacher at Bondy High, would have 29 years at the completion of this school year.
Wow.
So longtime employees.
well-deserved.
Well-deserved retirement, absolutely.
Yeah, well, congratulations to them for making it to the finish line. And any other comments from the board?
Thank you for your service.
Right. If there's no further discussion, would the clerk please call the vote?
Right, excuse me, Breister,
Yes.
Hayes, yes. Jones?
Yes.
Net?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Uselman?
Yes.
Churchella?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. Congratulations and enjoy retirement. Next on the agenda is individually considered resolutions. First from Business Services is to consider approval of the Summer Recreation Department program fees. Could we have the motion and then we'll have Ms. Wagner address us?
I move to approve the Summer Recreation Department program fees for 2017 as prepared.
Second.
A motion and a second. And Renee Wagner from the Rec Department is here, and the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you. Everybody should have a copy. Basically, our fees, this coming summer you really don't have any major changes. Pools have stayed the same. The city outdoor pools have stayed the same, as well as the aquatic center. And as you look through this, I guess basically it's a list of the programs that we're gonna be offering this summer. Some of them, obviously, we tried last year. If they're not successful, we eliminate them, don't offer them this year, come up with some new programs. The one thing that we're still working on, which would be a change, it isn't even listed in here yet, is for our adult softball. What we've been struggling with a little bit is our softball player fees. I think we increased them about 2 years ago, and what we're finding is there's a lot of the teams that don't want to pay, the players don't want to pay $35 to be a sub and come out and play 2 or 3 games. So what we're finding more and more of in the summer are illegal players. Tons of teams, the roster, or playoff time come, we check roster, and we have more forfeits than what they play because they're playing illegally. So what we're looking at, we're gonna be meeting with Fond du Lac softball, and what we're looking at is after their 15th paid player, there's gonna be a $15 fee for the last 5 spots on the roster. So basically, those fees will come off of the FSI portion of it, but hopefully that we can get people to have rosters that are, that are correct and everybody's playing on the teams they're supposed to be. So other than that, that's the only really change that we have. Our fees, basically, we look at them as, as about a $5 per hour fee for our classes, where we have instructors that are paid. So, we look at if it's a 3-day or a 4-day class, an hour a day. That's how we generally try to figure our fees. Obviously, some of our classes, our science classes, when we work with the Rocket Club or the Lego League, where there's extra fees involved there, our fees obviously have to up to accommodate those. But in general, we stay about $5 per class hour, so. So if anybody has any questions, I can address them, but again.
Well, I just wanted to comment, one of the items I noticed is Intro to Drones this summer. That looks fascinating. That's a new program?
Well, it is a new program, and I saw these young kids from Lakeshore, and I have a drone, and mine bounces off the ceiling. I don't know how they do what they do, but
You might have
it'll be
80
very interesting.
Yeah, you might have 80
Yes.
little interested bodies wanting to come and do drones this summer.
Yeah, the ones that we're gonna be using are just real small ones, but it's all they need to try.
Yeah.
So, Jeff Stever from Moraine Park is gonna be teaching the class. So if it's successful, again, we've only advertised the 2, but if there's a waiting list, he's willing to do more during the summer, so
Nice.
we'll see.
Yeah, that looks like a really attractive class. And I was told to ask you, how is pickleball being received in this community?
Well, it's, we have a actual lessons, which they come, and after about 3 meetings with the instructor, they just want to go out and play. So right now, we have a doubles league. We had a group of probably 8 or 10 that went to Chegwin every Wednesday evening, and they played. We marked the floor over there. They have their own equipment, and they played. This year, they have 3 courts that they have strictly for pickleball at Taylor Park, and they're going to be highly used. We have a doubles league set up. I don't know if it'll go. A lot of these people just go out and play, so we'll have to see how that works. But last year was pretty successful, and I can only see it improving, so.
And how many years has that been part of your programming?
I think we've offered it probably the last 2 summers.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, it's getting big. You know, a lot of people at the Y, not so much in the winter, obviously, because a lot of people go down south.
Right.
So when they come back,
It's,
It's
yeah.
really fun. Have you played it?
I've seen a lot of people play, and
Yeah.
it is a thing people my age supposedly do, I guess.
and like I said, at Taylor, there's 3 strictly for pickleball. And they can't even play tennis on them. They're going the sideways on
Right.
one court,
Yeah.
so.
Great. Any other questions from the board on the rec department
No,
items?
it looks like a great set of offerings again.
Thank you.
Yeah, it sure
Thank you
does.
for all your hard work.
Yes,
Thanks a
thank
lot.
you, Renee. Thanks for being here
Thank you.
tonight. So we have a motion and a second to approve the Recreation Department program fees. Would the clerk please call the vote?
Hayes, yes. Jones?
Yes.
Net?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Uselman?
Yes.
Brewster?
Yes.
Georgella?
Yes, the motion passes 7-0. Next, under individually considered resolutions from Human Resources, consider an administrator retirement. Jim Botting has been with the district as the principal at Evans Elementary School since 2001. 16 years of service to students and staff. We will miss Mr. Botting and excited that he can embark on the next chapter of his life with his family and friends. That's well written, whoever put that in there. We have a motion to accept Mr. Botting's retirement.
I move the Board of Education accept the retirement of James Botting, Evans Elementary School Principal, effective at the end of the day, June 22nd, 2017. And we express our deep appreciation for his many contributions and dedicated service to the students and staff of the district for 16 years.
And I'll second that. And Mr. Botting is here. And Dr. Sieber, you have any words for Mr. Botting? You guys have
We've been together for quite some time. Actually, when Mr. Botting came to the Fond du Lac School District was the same year that I went to become the assistant principal at Savish. And so with Evans and Savish being in such close proximity, I got to know him. He was a tremendous mentor for me, and along with Mr. Noble. And when I think of Jim, I think of professional learning communities and how he has embraced that method of work and the right work for so many, many years, and has been a leader in helping the rest of us learn the value of that work. So with that being said, Jim, your tenure here has been tremendous. It's been a pleasure to work with you. We look forward to finishing strong with you and wish you nothing but the best as you move on into the next chapter of your life.
Thank you.
And I
Mr.
must say,
Botting.
Mr. Botting, thank you for letting me into your school as many times as you did last year. I know I was there quite regularly, and it was a great experience being there and seeing how much respect you had from the students and staff there. It won't quite be the same. It won't look the same, won't feel the same in there. So congratulations on your retirement, sir. We have a motion and a second. The clerk, please call the vote.
Jones?
Yes.
Net?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Uselman?
Yes.
Brewster?
Yes.
Hayes, yes. Georgella?
Yes. Motion carries 7-0. Congratulations, Mr. Potting. Next on the individually considered resolutions, we are to consider approval of the Fond du Lac High School trip to Germany, March 23rd, 2018 through April 5th of 2018. Could we have a motion, please?
I move the Board of Education approve the Fond du Lac High School trip to Germany, March 23rd through April 5th, 2018.
Second.
A motion and a second, and the notes say that our teacher Janice Keck has put together a learning experience for high school German students via this immersion opportunity. And Dr. Sieber, what can you tell us about this?
Well, it's another amazing opportunity for kids at Fond du Lac High School. The board has seen these before for trips to France, much more recently. And Janice has lined up, it's over spring break for part of it, so it's a 2-week trip. Part of it is spring break, which is always appreciated, as the students miss less instruction here. But it's also an amazing opportunity for them to really have both some hotel, but primarily homestays when they go. So they're really fully immersed into German culture and have incredible opportunities because of Mrs. Keck's plan here. So it's exciting, and I certainly encourage your approval.
Quite an educational opportunity, yes. Any other discussion from board members on this? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the vote?
Net,
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Uselman,
Yeah.
Brewster,
Yes.
Hayes, yes, Jones.
Yes.
Churchill.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, next on the agenda is board and administrator reports. First, from the athletic department, Drew Mitchell is here to give us an overview of the PEP grant, and the athletic director, David Mikulkevich, is here to talk about the winter sports wrap-up. Gentlemen, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us. Actually, we'll both help out with the PEP grant
Okay.
discussion. So just to review, we received the PEP grant going into this year for the 2016-17 through what will be the 18-19 school year. We received, over that 3-year period, $1.25 million in funds to be used on programming, equipment, things along those lines to help with our daily activity, to increase our daily intake of fruits and vegetables among our students, and also the healthy fitness levels for each of our students at the elementary, middle school, and high school level. So again, the funds can be used for programming equipment. We cannot use it for structures or anything permanent that way. But the first thing we're going to start talking about, and I'll go through, is our programming that we're looking at here so far. The first thing would be intramurals at the secondary school levels. At the middle school level, we're offering a variety of things within our fitness centers at each middle school. Basketball intramurals, and also volleyball at this time. Up at the high school, we're going to have the weight room open 3 days a week with supervision for students who are not in an athletic activity right now or in the class, so that kids will be able to get up there and use that, and it'll be supervised. Also, we have a partnership with TNT with their punch card, where they go into our weight room. I think it's 6 times. They get a free activity or a lesson over at TNT Fitness. And also, we'll be starting a spring kickball league this year over at the high school to allow for a few kids to take a little more activity into their day. We also have family event nights that are being done at all schools, with family bowling, family nights at the YMCA, family gym nights, family skate, family walk to school days, family golf day, and family movie with Go Noodle built in, so that we'll get up and have a little activity for the entire family during that activity. We have the Spark resource, which is a nutritional lessons that are infused into our elementary PE units, so that they're learning about the importance of nutrition in their daily diet. Also, that'll be built into the middle school as well with the Balance My Day resource, which we'll talk a little bit about more later. We also have Polar training that went on for the elementary, middle school, and high school PE teachers. We've purchased heart rate monitors and other equipment from Polar that will allow for us to track steps. We'll check the heart rate, and we'll basically connect directly to the iPads that the teacher will have for each class, and then we'll project that information up on the screen. So students will be able to see when they're working within the correct heart rate and within their healthy fitness range, kind of to give them a little bit of motivation to kind of work to those goals, and they'll see how long they're within those goals. With that, then, we'll be working with FitnessGram, which will track all the data for our teachers. So basically, we'll be able to put the information right into FitnessGram, and it'll be able to print reports for us, give us a great idea of that we're doing the right things for our students. We'll also be working with Ignesian, working on our screen time for the middle school students. There are presentations throughout the year for our middle schoolers to reduce the amount of time that they are in front of a computer or in front of their phone, and get them out a little bit more active, working within those areas. And the last thing that we've done so far is we had 2 teachers go out to Boston. They braved that snowstorm we had here a couple weeks ago. They made it out there. We're able to go to a number of quality sessions. And from what they said, as always, is the networking is the most valuable part, to be able to develop those relationships to bring quality ideas back here to Fond du Lac for us. So.
Next thing we'll talk about is partnerships. In our community, we have a number of businesses and a number of organizations that have partnered with us. The brochure that you are receiving there has a list of most of them. As each week goes on, we're contacted by additional people and additional organizations, so that's not a complete list, but I wanted to highlight a couple. Renee was already up here tonight with the rec department. The rec department has been a really strong partner to start with, and they are going to partner not just with they're going to partner with every elementary school next year. They're going to partner with every school, but every elementary school. Each school is going to have family events 2 family events a year for the students and the parents to come be active together. There are 9 elementary schools, approximately 9 months in the school year. So each elementary school is going to partner with the rec department one time during the year, and that's going to be spaced out. They're going to have a gym and swim activity at Riverside. There will be other activities that the teachers in those schools will plan for families to come in. But that rec department has just been tremendous to work with. Renee has just been outstanding, and just wanted to highlight that one part of the rec department's contribution. Living Well is our advisory committee, our advisory board, and they are kind of steering decisions that we make and directions that we go as we go through this grant and try to increase vegetable and fruit consumption. People with partners from downtown. Magnesium is part of that Living Well community, or that Living Well advisory board. So the YMCA, they're on the board. UW Extension. So they're going to be giving us a lot of input as far as how to best use these funds so that we can increase activity, increase fitness, increase vegetable consumption. In addition to the ones that are in the brochure, I've learned more about what the city is doing. The city is doing incredible things to, over the next few years, increase bike trails, not just within the city, but around the city as well. And we've got the Loop, and we have the Friends of the Loop, and so the city of Fond du Lac is just doing some incredible things. So that's kind of a nutshell of our partnerships. If you want to ask some questions later on, my contact's in there. If you want to ask now, that's fine too. But there are some really nice things going on.
As for equipment, like I talked about, we ordered the heart rate monitors that will be used throughout the district, elementary through high school, for many of those kids to kind of get them an understanding of what that healthy fitness zone is. We've ordered secondary level intramural equipment, so basketballs and different things for them to strictly use for intramurals that they'll have. In the elementary, we've got the Spark resource, which will be used in their curriculum to help balance in the fruits and vegetables and other things that will be definitely very important to them. There's visual models, pedometers that they'll be using, and other assessment tools such as new sit and reach machines and different things along those lines that will help them collect the data that we need for the grant. The health classes, new models and visuals, examples of what a pound of fat is versus a pound of muscle, and just to have that understanding. So different things along those lines. At the middle school level, each fitness center at the middle school level will be getting a makeover, thanks due to a partnership with the Cardinal Alumni Athletic Association and Joe Guyette's work to help us raise money for that. I think he's raised about $23,000 to help replace a large amount of the equipment and different racks and things that can go into that, into those areas. So all 3 middle schools will have new equipment in there. Also, like talked about earlier, with the Spark Balance by Day resource to help students understand the importance of fruits and vegetables. Inline skates for all new middle schools to help them with another fitness activity. And then up at the high school right now, we've ordered 24 spinner bikes that will be put into more of a fitness center that will allow for them to use that, and we'll eventually be adding in ellipticals once we decide on a model that we feel is going to be able to stand the test of time for us a little bit.
Wow.
Nice.
Great. It's great.
Sounds pretty ambitious. What type of reporting requirements do you have then with this?
Annually, we'll need to report to the federal government, and so there are several performance standards that we're trying to meet, but the big ones are how many students are above that healthy fitness zone in 5 out of 6 areas. So the healthy fitness zone is basically the 20th percentile, and if they fall below the 20th percentile in whether it's strength or muscular endurance or flexibility or cardiovascular fitness, that becomes a warning sign or a danger zone. And so we want all of our students to be above that in all of the health-related fitness components. So that's a big one. And then consumption of fruits and vegetables. We want students to be eating at least 3 vegetables a day and at least 2 fruits a day. And we're kind of keeping track of that. A couple times a year we will measure that and ask some questions, sort of some surveys.
Okay.
And then the physical activity. We want students to get, we are successful if students get 60 minutes of physical activity every day. So if they're not getting that much activity, then we're not successful. So we want as many students as possible. We want all students to get 60 minutes of physical activity a day. It's a lot easier for the younger ones. The high school presents some additional challenges, but we're trying to get every student, K-12, whether they have their driver's license or not, get 60 minutes of physical activity every day.
Sounds like you'll have your work cut out for you, won't you?
We will.
I like the
Yes.
2 hours or less of screen time too.
Yeah.
Okay, and so just a last section here, some next steps. We do have a new nutritional consultant who is going to help us determine whether our curriculum is actually increasing consumption of fruits and vegetables. We are going through a 3-year process of looking at our curriculum. This year, we're basically just identifying any gaps in the curriculum that might be any place where we could add something that's going to cause that consumption of fruits and vegetables to go up. Active Schools Elementary, that's a DPI initiative for active schools, and DPI is going to be giving us some training next year in that. And what we're trying to do is to increase the number of schools that are using active recess. Active recess is basically a structured recess where students are actually engaged in activity during that recess time. And then our outdoor adventure. All of our adventure is going to be outdoor in this grant. Last grant that we had in 2005, we put indoor adventure equipment at Fondy High and at Tyson Middle School. All 3 middle schools, by the end of the grant, will have outdoor adventure and low ropes course, and then Fondy High will have an outdoor ropes opportunity for students. And then the last thing on here is our elementary teachers will be traveling to Sheboygan. Sheboygan also won a PEP grant. And so we're going to be collaborating our elementary teachers with Sheboygan elementary teachers for the same training in August, which is going to present a cost savings for both districts, as well as a chance for people to network and to really go beyond the grant with those relationships and the things that they gain together. So that's the PEP grant in a nutshell.
Wow.
That was
Any
very
other
thorough.
questions from the board on the PEP grant?
You said federal government, is that Department of Ed?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any
Very
others?
exciting. Thank you, John.
Yeah,
Thank
that sounds
you.
like a fantastic set of things that are going to be going on here. You're going to be a busy man.
Provide some great opportunities for our students and for
Yeah.
our families within the district, so it's going to be great.
Right. And now you have a winter sports wrap-up.
You don't get rid of me yet.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you.
I'll try and keep this as fast as possible. We had a number of student athletes who were recognized here during our winter season. I'll just go in kind of alphabetical order of the sports, and I'm going to start with boys basketball. Boys basketball took 3rd place in the conference this year. They went 12-6, which is the highest they have finished, I believe, since 2005. I believe is when the last time they finished that high. Lost a heartbreaker to Menominee Falls in the regional final of the WIA tournament. But overall had a very, very successful season. Made some major growth within the program. As for postseason honors, first team all conference was Luke Lowy. Second team was Sam Fredrickson. Honorable mention was Caleb Goldstein. Player of the year, all area player of the year was Luke Lowy. All area first team was Sam Fredrickson. Second team all area was Caleb Goldstein, and then honorable mention all area was Drew Jorgensen. Luke Lowy was also named to the WBCA All-State team for Division I first team, which is quite an honor. And then Sam Fredrickson and Luke were both selected to participate in the WBCA All-Star game, which will happen in the middle of June. Sam will participate. Luke won't be able to. He'll be almost ready to go off to William & Mary to start his collegiate season. So overall, they had a very, very successful season this past year. The girls took 5th place this year, finished 10-8 in the conference. Overall, though, they had 14 girls on varsity. I believe at the end of the year they had 7 healthy girls. So they had a number of different injuries and different things that came up throughout the year to kind of persevere through. With that, they lost in the regionals to Homestead in a very close game, had their chances. I think it was a 1-point game with about 28 seconds left and ended up losing that game. But first team all conference for them was Ellie Gietzel. Honorable mention was Megan Daly and Leah Wendels. Ellie Gietzel was also the area player of the year this year. Second team all area was Megan Daly, and then honorable mention was Aaliyah Wendels. Girls hockey took first place in the conference this year with an 8-1 record, won the conference tournament. Were ranked as high as, I believe, 4th in the state, finished, I think, 7th in the state this year. Lost to University School in the sectional semifinal. Had many girls receive postseason awards. Receiving first team were Hattie Verstegen, Kelly Dini, and Rebecca Binder at the goalie position. Honorable mention were Kelly Ty and Morgan Brown and Drew Dianovich. Also with that, we had 5 girls receive Scholar Athlete nominations, which means they had a cumulative GPA of 3.5 or higher through their high school career, at least through the hockey season. And that was Ashley Smith, Kelly Denny, Megan Sprinkman, Rebecca Binder, and then Maddie Ott as well. So a number of girls received postseason honors with that, along with second team All-State recognition for Hattie Versagen, Kelly Denny, and Rebecca Binder, and then honorable mention All-State with Drew Dianovich. So a number of girls performed at a very high level for us for this past season. Boys hockey, very young team this year, skated at times with 6 freshmen out on the ice, so a very young team, a lot of experience coming back. Finished 7th in the conference this year and lost to Brookfield Co-op in the first round of the regional playoffs this year. This year they had second team all-conference Ryan Sobel in a forward position, and then honorable mention forward for Henry Lang and for Zach Wilson as a defenseman. Then we also had 2 kids receive Scholar Athlete, which was Adam Grimm and Thomas O'Leary. So another example of good kids being excellent on the ice, but also in the classroom for us. Wrestling this year finished in 7th place in the conference. Sectional qualifiers were Colin Athanasio at 152, Colton Wazaleski at 195, and then Dante Johnson at 285. And then state qualifiers were Dante Johnson and Colton Wazaleski. Dante ended up finishing 3rd at the state tournament this year. Actually did very well. A wrestler that he had beat during the conference season, actually from Kaukauna, ended up winning the heavyweight division. So I know he was disappointed, but wrestled very, very well down at the state tournament and represented us very well. First team all conference was Dante Johnson. Second team was Colin Athanasio and Colton Wazaleski. Honorable mention was Chase Krug. And then Dante was the FVA Wrestler of the Year and also the All-Area Wrestler of the Year this year. So very well recognized for his efforts this past season. And then last but not least is swimming. Boys swimming this year finished 5th place in the conference. We did not have anybody qualify for the state tournament, but we did have a number of kids receive postseason recognition with our 400 freestyle relay receiving second team all conference, which was Abe Stoffel-Murray, Andrew Park, Cannon Locke, and Ben Stoffel-Murray. Andrew Park received a second team all conference for the 200 freestyle and the 500 freestyle. And then Cannon Locke for the 100 butterfly and Ben Stoffel-Murray for the 100 backstroke. And then honorable mention for our 200 medley relay, Ben Stoffel-Murray, Andrew Park, Cannon Locke, Abe Stoffel-Murray. And then in the 200 individual medley was Ben Stoffel-Murray, and the 100 breaststroke was Cannon Locke. So we had a number of kids perform at a high level for us this past season. Overall, all of our programs at that level are starting to improve and get in the direction that we would like them. And with that, we get to move into the spring season, which I thought, at the middle of February, we all thought was going to be here sooner than later, and then we got a lovely snowstorm. So we're starting to get some teams outside. Girls and boys track has been underway since the first week of March, with a number of competitions already. Our girls are actually competing at UW Oshkosh tonight, and our boys have competed at UW Oshkosh and Stevens Point, winning the Stevens Point Invitational. So they're off to a good start as well. Baseball and softball are off and running. Both are hoping to get outside early this week. Softball's supposed to play on Friday. We'll see what happens with that one. With that, girls soccer is off and going as well. Games have already been canceled for this week, but hopefully we can get into next week and get the fields ready. And then boys golf and boys tennis started today, and we're expecting good things for both programs. Both bring back a lot of talent off of last year's teams, and we're hoping to see some great success at those levels as well. So, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Well, thank you, Mr.
All right. Thank
Minkavich,
you
for
guys.
that
Have a great
update.
night.
Thank you.
Well appreciated. Next, under Board Administrator Reports, the Superintendent, and we have some guests here tonight, do we not?
Yes, would you like to introduce them? Or would-
Sure, we have State Senator Dan Fyan and State Representative Jeremy Thiesfeld here, and they're kind enough to share their time with us to give us an update on legislative education-related matters. And gentlemen, thank you. I know there's so many demands on your time. Thanks for joining us here tonight. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you for having us this evening. Just a little bit about where we are currently with the budget. This week is the agency briefings. They start tomorrow. They go tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then we have some joint finance committee public hearings coming up. The closest one for us will be in Berlin at the high school over there. It's in Green Lake County, about 35, 40 minutes from here. The next closest one would be State Fair Park. So I encourage you on April 7th, if you got time, head over to there, take a look at it. If you want to get the ability to speak, get there early, sign up, and hopefully you get up there and speak and talk a little bit about education issues or whatever other issue in the budget strikes your fancy. So, couple other things. One thing that I am working on is a separate bill. It deals with technical education incentive grants. It's something that Fond du Lac does utilize. This last, I do believe it was 2 years ago, they voted for a bill that allotted $3 million, and it was $1,000 per grant for every student that graduated, but also completed a technical certification. The school district got $1,000, okay? There was 4,000 some people that qualified for that, so you only got $746. The bill is to make it sum sufficient, so it'll be $1,000 no matter how many people, because we want more people to get involved. We want incentives for kids that are still in high school to learn more and get these certifications to get out into the workforce and have these when they get out there. So that's one thing we're working on right now. It should be a bipartisan bill. It's pretty popular, so. With that, I will turn it over to Jeremy for a little bit more, because he is the education chair as well, or Assembly Education Chair.
Well, good evening.
Hello.
I guess since Dan just talked about bills that are in the Senate, I'll just take you through a few things that are in the Assembly Education Committee right now, and then we can go through some things in the budget if that works for you. Right now, we're still early in the session, obviously. We're about 3 months in, and just starting to get bills into the committee right now. A few of them you may have heard about. And I'll just mention a few of them. First of all, if you may recall, last summer, I served as chair of a Legislative Council Study Committee on school data. And it was focusing on the data that the Department of Public Instruction collects from schools across the state and whether that should be enhanced, basically anything that came up with school data on DPI's end, we looked into that. And out of that, we formulated 2 bills, and both those bills are before the Education Committee in the Assembly right now. One has to do with putting I guess you'd call it an inventory of all of the data that is collected, all of the data points, I guess is a better way to say it. So a name, not grades or anything like that. This is all pretty much very unsensitive data, but there is some of it that you don't want to be getting out into the public. And so we wanted this inventory to be there so that parents could go onto the department website, look at all the data points that were being collected so that everything was transparent, so that everybody knew what was being done. In general, school districts collect more data than what the department does. The department said to us repeatedly that they don't collect anything more than what they have to, according to state law or federal law. So that's one bill that's before us. The other one has to do with protection of data. We spent a lot of time talking about ways that the department protects the data that it gets, as well as what they can do to help school districts with the process of protecting data as well. I'm sure it's probably not a surprise to you, but the people the experts in the data protection field that came in to talk to the committee said that not just the school data, but where the data is housed at the State Department of Administration, they are under attack, they said 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's always somebody trying to get into their system. And so they impressed us actually, with how thorough they were in making sure that all of the data is safe, not just school data, as I said, but revenue data and so forth collected by a bunch of the other agencies. And so what the second bill is going to do is going to put into state statutes a number of things that the department is already doing to protect student data. But it's also going to establish some programs that are going to be available to school districts if you would choose to use them in regard to student data. And so you could look for those, because I fully anticipate both these bills are going to pass. They were unanimous in the committee last summer, and I suspect they will move pretty quickly through the legislature as well. So those are in the assembly right now. I haven't seen that they're actually in the Senate yet, but that will come at some point in the future as well. Another bill that is before my committee right now has to do with the way that state aid payments are distributed. I'm sure your financial aid people, if you're not aware of this, you would know that right now you pay 4 times a year, or you receive payments 4 times a year, I should say. And the first one is 15%, and then the next one's 25%, and the next one's 25%, and then the final one is 35%. Well, the bill is to make that 25% all 4 times, which seems to make a lot more sense to me as well. But I'm not certain how the dollars flow at the state level, whether that's something that's realistic for them to do. So I'd be curious on your thoughts about that, if that's problematic or not. I know Superintendent has been at CISA meetings with me in the past where they have shown where certain parts of the year you get a little low on the cash flow and you have to do short-term borrowing, and we would like to avoid that situation. I personally would consider, the world operates on monthly payments. If we were to be able to have some sort of way to distribute those funds on a monthly basis without having it cost an arm and a leg, I think that would be a beneficial thing for districts probably across the board, because you have to pay your bills on a monthly basis. Probably be good if you could have the money come in on a monthly basis as well. Another one that would probably be popular for members of the school board here is, believe it or not, you do not have the right to not accept your salary as a school board member. And so there is a bill right now to make that okay for you to say, for you to decline your salaries.
Well, right now, the way it
actually a
works,
bill.
if you decline your salary, you still pay the tax on it.
Yes, that's the main reason. You can give it back.
Saying
but,
you can do this.
So that is moving forward as well. Probably the biggest issue in the committee right now has to do with the school start date. It is in my committee, has been there for a couple weeks. At this point, the author of the bill has not asked for a hearing. And that's kind of a step in the process that we wait for. I do anticipate having a hearing on that, and if that bill were to become law, it would eliminate the September 1st start date for school, meaning that each district would be on its own as to decide when to start school.
Do you have a sense on where that may or may not go?
Somewhat, yes.
Yeah.
I don't really think it's going to pass.
Okay.
It's one of those things that's going to take a number of years as people warm to the idea, because essentially the September 1st start date that exists right now was a compromise. I think goes back, 15 years or so, those of you who can recall that. And it's essentially a compromise between the school districts, the department, and basically the tourism industry, which includes restaurants as well. And many of them view this as, well, we compromised on this back then, why are we being asked to compromise again? And
Can you say more about that? What was the compromise? What was the extreme that was wanted?
I don't remember what the law was before that.
Oh.
I'm not certain, but I'm just told that it was a compromise.
The big thing is, the last weekend in August is the busiest tourist week of the year.
Yeah, and a lot of people would say, well, you know, what's the difference between a week in June and a week in August? Particularly up north, it's a really big deal because the weather is better in August than it is in early June. And those who run the resorts will tell you that most of their, I shouldn't say most, a large share of their revenue comes in August because the sport seasons are done, the rec seasons are done. You have that short period of time before the high school kids are back into football and soccer and all the different sports that they're involved in. And that's when they, as you might say, they make hay while the sun shines. And they're resistant to that change because there are other times of year they just don't think that they're able to make money, and then at least not as much money, and they also have the issue that they lose employees because of a large share of the employee base of these resorts are high school and college students. So the bill that was proposed this session is stronger than the one last session, because last session it focused on just the, if I recall correctly, the advanced placement classes, allowing schools who had a certain percentage of advanced placement students to start school earlier so that they could get further along in the advanced placement courses, because I believe the test is in the middle of May.
First 2 weeks of May.
And so if you're taking an AP course, you're taking the test, and the test is done, and now you still have
You sit in
3
school for a
weeks of
month,
school left.
yeah.
And so that doesn't seem to be a logical way to do that. And so that one failed last session, and the author decided he was gonna go for it all this session.
What happened
And-
to the proposal about each district deciding when they should start?
Yeah, it strikes me as a local control issue,
Yes.
really.
Sure.
I mean, wouldn't
As
the
well.
tourism-heavy areas be responsible to their own constituents to set, those school boards would set their times later if the tourism there demanded that?
Yeah, I understand your concern. It is a local control issue. But once a law is set, the only way to change that law is to, well, change it.
Sure.
And this is a law that's in the statutes right now, and
Yeah.
you've gotta get 50 votes in the assembly and
Right.
17
Well,
17 in the Senate.
Another
and a
issue we're
signature from the
seeing,
governor.
another issue we're seeing here is we've got the private schools beginning different times and
Mhm.
actually using that to their advantage, as an advertising tool.
Yeah, I
Something
agree.
to
That's
consider.
a legitimate complaint.
Mhm.
So that's really what's before the committee right now. We've been spending a lot of time, at least in terms of bills, we've been spending a lot of time getting briefed by the department about the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, as it's oftentimes called, which is the latest federal update of the elementary and secondary education law from back, I think, 1965 or so. The previous revision of that law was No Child Left Behind, which I'm sure most people have heard of. Now this is the latest update of that. And that's been an interesting discussion, much of it centering around the fact that the federal law is allowing a great deal of power to return to the states, and we ought to take advantage of that. And so centering on that particular issue has been the focus of our meetings. So with that, unless there are questions on any of those, I will go on to the budget.
Will the legislators and the two of you support the governor's budget on increasing funds to public education?
As it is now, you mean?
Mhm.
Well, something you need to focus on, everybody, is that the governor's budget is just a proposal. The legislature gets their crack at it. And much of what the legislature decides to do is based on the revenue projections that come out. Now, if you recall,
They're lowering
revenue
those.
projections, there are 2 revenue projections in the odd-numbered years. So we already had one in January, there will be another one in May, and then the even-numbered years, there's just one in January. And the reason there are 2 in odd-numbered years is because we do the budget. And so we get another projection coming in May. The January projection, things looked really good, hence the governor's budget followed that up and spent an awful lot of money that frankly a lot of us didn't think was available.
So they're starting
because-
to think they're lower than expected.
Yeah, because if you go back to the previous year, the projections that year didn't look as good. And so the concern is that come May, you know, who's to say if things aren't gonna just suddenly
Yeah.
start turning back the other direction again? I hope not. But if things were to start turning back the other direction again, I don't think you're going to see those numbers for education, but there are also probably going to be cutbacks in a number of areas, not just in education.
Hopefully that
So
will be
we're hopeful that
If the
you'll
projection
be able
comes
to
in
maintain
to
that.
be very close to what it was, you know, I support an adequate funding increase. So, but we're hoping it comes in with the rosy picture that was in January. That'll make things a lot easier. But it's pretty much a wait and see approach.
So
right now.
that'll be on hold until you hear something in May, essentially?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
they
mean-
start their planning work, but until May, you know, if there's a change in the projection come May, there will be a lot of changes
Yeah.
Right.
that will come after that.
And even one of my big concerns with the budget is, it's $76 billion, we only leave about 20 million left over at the end of the day. It's not a lot for a rainy day fund.
Right.
It's about a rainy 4-hour fund.
That's been a
So,
common theme.
that's one concern I have.
What in your mind takes precedence over funding for education? If you only have so much to spend, what would you spend it on?
Well, for me personally, really not anything, but
What is that? Can you
what
explain that? a little?
what you have in the legislature is a whole cross-section of people who have different areas of priority. And we have to look at all of those. And so when I have corrections officers come into me and start telling me that they haven't gotten a raise in X number of years, when the hospitals come in and they're talking about Medicaid
Medicare,
reimbursements not being sufficient, we have to look at all of those things on an equal basis. For myself, having been an educator, certainly that's a very important thing for me. And I hope that we'd be able to maintain that level of spending that's in the governor's budget.
And for me, education's very high on the list, but like you said, it's a balancing act, there's a lot of, healthcare is one of the biggest pieces of the budget, so we gotta make sure that we spend all that wisely. Education's number 2, I do believe, right? As far as
In
spending?
spending?
Yeah, and then corrections and university after that, so.
Well, one area that I know from past experience, obviously, is the discretionary merit awards that agencies are still handing out this very day. You know, if that is in play, and schools are suffering because that's still occurring, I would urge you to look into that perhaps too.
It's a very subjective process.
It is a very subjective process, yes. But, you know, those are still going on. Some call them bonuses, some call them merit pay, but they're out there, and I'm sure you're well aware of those. Other questions, or do you have more on the budget? I'm sorry.
Well, I can do what you'd like. I wrote a list out. I don't have to go through the list at all. if you
Sure,
don't
why
want.
don't you give us what you have? That might cover most of what we have
And
to ask of you.
Some of it's just general details. All I did was look at the Fiscal Bureau book that came out and picked out things that I thought applied here, so I can do that. As was mentioned, the governor's budget, there's a $200, and this runs through categorical aids, $200 increase first year of the budget, then $204 the second year of the budget. But you have to also prove compliance with Act 10 on that.
Don't ask us what that means, we don't know
Well,
yet.
actually,
I know
I
what
do.
that
Oh, you
means.
do, you
I
got
do
an
know.
answer.
Yes,
I
I
know
got
what
an
that
answer.
means.
And what that means, there was, you have to spend 12% or the employees have to
employees
be
have to kick in
responsible for 12% of the health care. And there was some thought that it meant just the premiums. And so I requested from both the governor's office and the legislative council as to what that meant, and both came back with the same answer, that it's a combination of the two. It's 12% spending in total by the employee for healthcare, and so that should be able to maintain some of the flexibility that different school districts have had in trying to do different things with complying with Act 10.
Does that apply to voucher schools then?
No, because they
No?
are not on the state insurance plan.
But we're funding them? With
You're funding them.
Funding the vouchers?
You're funding them partially, yes.
But they don't have to abide by the same rules?
Not all of them, no.
Okay.
Then, another caveat with the $200 and $204 was that throughout the budget, the governor is trying to institute self-insurance model across the state. And he's projected a certain number of savings. Do you remember the number?
60 million in
$60
savings,
million.
but 30 goes to.
And so if the legislature were to change the budget to not do self-insurance, to continue the way it is now, his projection is that would be $60 million less in the budget. Some of that is tied to this education funding. I checked it out today, and I think it's like $12 less in each of the 2 years.
I think it was 12 the first year, 24 the next year.
And so that would have a small impact as well. The whole self-insurance debate is a very interesting one. A lot of the insurance companies are not in favor of it because you're going to be taking, in fact, probably none of them are in favor of it because you're going to be taking people out of their insurance companies and they're kind of moved over to the state insurance pool. So they're kind of moved out of the market. And that means fewer customers for them. And the numbers that are being projected, I hear it all over the place. Some people say it's not going to save any money. Some people say 60 million is a conservative number. It might be way more than that. And those who run the insurance companies right now claim that they are going to be able to keep costs down beyond what they are right now also. So it's hard to say where that one is going to go yet. And ultimately, the state is going to make, Fiscal Bureau is going to make projections of revenue. And that's what the legislature is going to have to abide by when it puts together any changes in the budget.
So self-insurance sounds more likely than not, though, doesn't it?
Well, just based on the fact that there's a budget
know.
there
Yeah.
from the governor.
I mean, we've heard it talked about for at least the past year or so, at least as a
Like
as an
Jeremy
idea.
said, I've heard everything from it could cost us 100 million to it could save us 100 million. So,
Right. What ultimately tips that argument
Well, and
for
then there's
you?
the other thing is if you take 200,000 people out of the pool, private pool, what does that do to the rates in Dane County? Are we driving those up artificially then? So what are we doing to what are the unintended consequences? Those are some of the other things that are gonna be looked at as well.
Okay.
But glad I don't have to make that decision right now.
Okay.
That's a lot more information to be learned yet.
Okay.
We have a number of people in the legislature who are, who their real life prior to or during the legislative life is insurance. And so there are a number of people who have a pretty strong grasp on this that we'll be relying on as we go forward. Next thing, this doesn't necessarily apply here, but there are a number of initiatives to assist rural schools, such as expanding broadband, transportation, and sparsity aid. There's a pretty good sizable amount of money going into mental health that the governor has put in the budget. $3 million for social workers, where it works kind of on a 50-50 match sort of thing. And $2.5 million for grants. I think both of those apply in the second year of the budget. There is $7.6 million additional money for training and connecting students with disabilities to employment. A big deal, something that I have been trying to encourage for years, is because we have these programs called youth options and course options. And there might be 10 people in the state who understand the differences between those, and Jim is maybe one of them.
That's right.
And so I've been encouraging for years that they need to put those two programs together because there are direct similarities between them, and the governor has done that in his budget. Now, the question with that always comes up was, well, who's going to pay for it? And my examination of it is that if the course is going to, and this is about taking college courses while you're in high school. So if you are taking the course for high school credit, 75% of it will be paid for by the district. If it's, and the 25% would come from the Department of Workforce Development. It's kind of running through DWD. If it's going to be for a college credit, then the high school would pay 25%, DWD would pay 50%, and the student themselves or their family would pay 25%. So that's the plan that the governor has set up. Any questions on that one before I go on?
Oh, that's helpful.
No, but that seems like a good idea. I like the 25% and 50% and the 25% being paid by the family because from my experience, all the students who select youth options at the university level for college credit are not as serious students. And so this would encourage the students and their parents, encouraging the students to perform. That is, to attend
Yeah.
class and
Well-
complete the assignments.
My son and daughter have taken advantage of the concurrent enrollment, what it's currently called here, with the UW. And anytime I could buy a college credit at 25%, where do I sign the check?
No kidding, yeah.
Let me sign up right now. So that was great, and it's a great part of the budget.
Let's see, the one that is not popular in the schools, but I don't see it being changed, is the, I wrote down EEE as an acronym, now I gotta remember what the acronym means. The Energy
Educator effectiveness, oh,
Exemption
energy, oh.
Expenditure, is that the right terminology? But anyways,
Energy efficiency
that is eliminated in the governor's budget, and
It's not
I think that's going to stay regardless of what changes with the budget, and so that will not be coming back. However, there is allocated an additional $20 million in the budget for energy efficiency projects. I think it's kind of operating almost on a grant basis. So there is an opportunity still, if you had stuff that was in the works and now there isn't going to be, you aren't going to be able to exceed the revenue limit to help with that, the possibilities exist for a grant of some sort for the next couple of years. For the, I suppose mostly for the families that are watching, in the governor's budget, he has 2 days in the back-to-school period of August in this year and next year where there will be a sales tax holiday. And so if that holds, I'm sure a lot of families will take advantage of that. If you can buy a computer without sales tax, that's a pretty good deal.
If you can buy anything without sales tax.
Seems like a lot of
It'll be the first Saturday and Sunday in August. And some of our neighboring states already have it, Minnesota and Iowa, so people on those border areas, they cross the lines to go over in those areas. This will just keep them in our state, and plus anytime we can save people money here, why not?
There's a relatively small amount, but I think it's new to the budget for gifted, actually I think it returns. I think it's been gone for a while for gifted and talented grants, $237,000. Another big issue is there is in the budget, the proposed budget, the elimination of the seat time requirement.
I was gonna ask you about that. Where do you see that going?
Truthfully, I
What's
think
that
it's
in the
going to stay.
budget?
I think so too.
It's a big deal, because, you know, this is, part of the process here is that we for years have been saying, kind of going back to No Child Left Behind and the beginning of the report cards and so forth, all these areas of accountability are being asked for. Well, if you have all these areas of accountability, why do you need to require certain hours?
Yeah.
If a school or a district isn't able to provide the accountability that the community wants, then obviously they need to spend some more time having school. And so the proposal is to give the schools the flexibility to decide that for themselves. And I don't know what school districts will do. I would assume for the first few years, they'll probably just kind of keep it the same and then start studying it as they go along. I'd just be curious to hear what your thoughts would be on that.
I just have a silly question. Why is that in the budget?
Because it's prescribed by
Is
state
that
law.
fiscal? I mean, at all?
No, it's not, but there's a bill out there also.
Okay.
The bill is actually much smaller.
It's
It's
a
to do a
pilot
pilot
program.
study. And so I would think at minimum that probably will happen.
Okay.
But why is it in the budget? Yeah, you
Yeah.
could say that about a lot of
Yes, I
things
do. Well,
Yeah.
I do have a lot
that
of
are in
questions
pretty
about
much
why
every
policies
budget
are in the budget, yeah.
that comes out in the state.
Okay.
I would see it very similar to the school start date, that it's a local control
That'd be great,
issue.
yeah.
And if it can stay in
I
there, I
would too.
think it's helpful, and it allows us to be creative
Mhm.
in terms of how we're clear on what the accountability measures are, and then be creative in how we get there.
Yeah.
And some of the problems that we've heard too is that certain things wouldn't count. You know, and I couldn't tell you what those are, but you probably could tell me that your students would get involved in some sort of activity, perhaps off campus, that was educational in nature, and it wouldn't be counted for varying reasons. And so it gives you some flexibility in that regard as well.
Yeah, thank you, that'd be great.
There is much change in the teaching and administrators' licenses. It basically is going to eliminate the renewal dates on the teaching licenses, both for current teachers and new teachers going forward. And in addition to that, I can tell you that the department is also, this isn't in the budget, but it's an administrative rule that's working its way through right now, where they're looking to offer some additional flexibilities within the licenses that people have. So in other words, if you are, let's say Dan here is licensed in biology,
Of course.
then if he already has a license in biology, he would be able to teach a different course and not be licensed, but he would have to pass the test, the praxis. And so you wouldn't have to pay for that additional license if you've already paid it in one course. And so that's an administrative rule that's before actually both education committees right now, that the department has the flexibility to be able to introduce that through the administrative rules process.
So he could be certified in biology and maybe take a chemistry test and then have that certificate as well and just present that to
You could-
qualify for teaching
Yes.
both? Okay.
And the way I understand it is the 5-year renewal and the fee that goes with it is eliminated.
That goes
So
Right.
everything becomes a lifetime
Mhm.
license, again,
Yep.
as a way to encourage people to enter the profession and remain in the profession.
And saves teachers money.
What about
Yes.
continuing education?
So PDPs
and
are going
those
away?
things?
Continuing education. would
Well,
save.
Yeah.
the fee will still exist up front, but you don't have to renew anymore.
So no
So-
PDPs anymore?
Yeah,
PI 34 is
continuing.
gone, is that what I'm hearing?
Could you say that again?
PI 34 is gone then?
I would assume that would be the
I,
case.
I couldn't quote you what PI 34 is.
That was the
But-
one, when it switched around in 2006 or
it'll
so,
be
when they started to
eliminated.
do the PDP process instead of
Right.
just renewing licenses
I
with
believe so.
continuing ed
It-
credits?
It
Okay.
won't be in effect any longer.
Okay.
And the,
Oshkosh is already dropping, is
Bless you.
sort of expecting that to go away,
Okay.
UW Oshkosh.
Interesting.
and so for continuing education, what will teachers be doing for them? There is no requirement once they get their,
It would seem that would follow that, yeah, but I couldn't answer that for certain. Let's see, also, I did, along that same line, I received a lot of complaints from out of state, actually, where people would call me from out of state because they'd look up the education committee chairman, and they'd say, I'm having a terrible time trying to get a license through the state of Wisconsin when they live in Iowa or Minnesota or wherever it might be. And so they're going to be taking care of that reciprocity problem, that if you have a license in another state and it's a similar course that you're coming to teach in Wisconsin, that you wouldn't have to go through the reciprocity of getting a license here as well.
Are we gonna open that up to every single state, or, cause I know some states have different, very different
I
standards.
believe, I didn't see any qualifiers that it was not for certain states.
Okay,
But I'd have to check in the actual language of the budget to see that. I just
might
looked at
concern
fiscal
some
bureau.
people.
the level of education. difference.
Yeah, some states have different really
That
different
would be up to the
standards.
hiring
I
body.
was gonna say,
Right.
that's where the hiring
That's
comes
true,
in.
I guess, yeah, okay.
And that's kind of a lot, I'm glad you said that, because
It's
that's
local control.
much of
So,
the
yeah,
theory
there you
here
go,
is
yeah,
that
okay.
there's a lot of trust in that the school districts are smart enough to figure out which teachers they want to teach in their
We're not gonna
students.
tell you who you gotta hire.
There also is an interesting program that the governor in his budget is going to fund, at least partially through the Department of Workforce Development, for in-district teacher development grant program. Most public schools have assistant teachers' aides and things like that, who oftentimes, after doing that for a while, discover that, well, hey, you know, this is kind of nice thing to do. I'm kind of interested in maybe becoming a real teacher myself. And so it allows districts to be able to set up programs to be able to help these teachers' aides and so forth with the pathway to becoming a teacher.
And this was a grant or just a program or what?
I
did
have
you-
down that it was a grant program.
Okay. Thank you.
And the final thing that I would add is that I can't quote them for you because there were several of them, but there were some minor additions to the report cards for districts and high schools. There weren't any changes that I could see for the K through 8 schools. And those would be the things that I made a note of, unless you have some others. That's all I got.
Any board members with questions while we had the two gentlemen here?
I had a real quick one. You had in your legislative update, you've reintroduced the opt-out bill?
Yes.
Okay. Does that, now with E ESSA giving us added flexibility, if we have a high number of students opting out of standardized testing, does that mean we're going to lose federal funding, or how does that chain back up and have consequences?
We can't control what the federal law says.
Right.
But I am.
Do you know if it's changed enough, or is it still a 95%
It's
rate of
federal law
testing?
Federal law is convoluted in a little way in that regard because
Right.
it says you can't require 95%, but if you don't get 95%, then you could be possibly penalized. I'm not aware of anybody who has actually been penalized
Uh-huh.
in any way.
Or do you know if Wisconsin is working on a workaround or anything like that, or just?
Yeah, I'm at least once a week, I talk with the department about this issue ever since even before I put my bill out, we were
Mhm.
working together to try to come up with something that's going to work for the department and something that I'm comfortable with that we feel can pass. And the department is pretty much comfortable with removing any state penalties that there
Mhm.
would be.
Okay.
Because some have had that, and they actually, I think already they already have introduced that they're no longer going to penalize districts. They would only do the individual schools that didn't get the 95%. But they've proposed to me that they're willing to pretty much eliminate the penalty altogether for state report cards.
Okay.
But they wanna have just a small caveat in there that if they are going to find a consistent problem in any particular school over the years, particularly in the subgroups of students.
Right.
That they wanna be able to
Because you still want a good
implement that.
measure of,
Yeah. And
if
so
you're
we're
gonna do the
dis- we're
test, you want that
discussing that
measure to be accurate, yeah.
currently as to how we're gonna proceed.
Okay.
I have to ask one of the questions that will be of concern not only to this district but statewide. Is Representative Kramer going to be reintroducing anything to do with his bill from last year?
His words to me is that he intends to.
Okay.
I
Would
asked him that
do you know
just
which
last
committee
week.
that goes toward? Does that go to you or elsewhere?
Well, logically, it would come to the education committee, but that's not a guarantee.
For people that are
education-
listening, can we say what we're talking about?
Right. Representative Kramer introduced a bill regulating bathroom usage. I believe last year it was just for schools.
Yeah, it was just for schools.
And this one will be different, potentially, it sounds
I
like.
have not seen the bill.
Okay.
But
I'm just going
he
by
has
his
told me
words
there will
publicly.
be some modifications to it.
Okay. So that's something that could come into play for many districts.
Yeah,
and
if
elsewhere.
something like that were to pass, I would assume that it's going to, obviously it'll impact statewide. But as to what level of a mandate it would be, I'm not certain.
Right. Thank you. Other questions from the board while we have these gentlemen?
Well, I'm interested in what is being done to make private voucher schools accountable for the funds that they receive. They are not held to the same standards that public schools are in reporting data, et cetera.
Uh-huh. Well,
What has happened to that issue?
the schools that are receiving the vouchers are subject to the report cards. If you look up the report cards now, there isn't data on there because they take I think it's a 3-year average of the data. And so it'd be no different than if you had a brand new public school, there wouldn't be 3 years of data and it would say the same thing. And so there are a number of measures where it is similar or exactly the same as what it is in public schools. But there are lots of areas where it is not as well. In terms of our new areas being introduced, in my studies of the budget, I can point to the background checks, I believe is 5 years. And that would be applied the same way.
What's 5 years?
that it would have to be renewed every 5 years.
Oh, I
The
see.
background check through,
Thank you.
and they work with Department of Justice on that. And I think that there was a change with the public schools in that regard in the governor's budget as well. I can't recall specifically what it was, but I think it mirrors both types of schools.
And licensure, is there any, looking at having teachers be licensed in the private schools or anything like that?
No, I don't
Especially with
recall
this
there was any
loosening it?
change
No?
in that
Okay.
regard. Other things, I can't recall if there's anything else that is in the budget that changes the status quo.
Okay.
Okay. Any further?
The bill on referenda, do you think that's coming back again, or is that kind of on the back burner
I think
now?
you can expect to see it.
So, do you think it's gonna be as intense as it was last time, where if you fail a well, not only does it limit the times at which referenda can be offered, but also there's a penalty if you don't succeed?
Don't know.
Are you guys
We
in
have to wait
favor
and
of
see.
that idea, or?
Yeah, I can't speak
I've
for
heard
the
a lot of
author.
different ideas.
All of these discussions have been held with the authors of the bill.
Yeah.
And they've listened to these discussions, but I've gotten no commitment out of them other than that they intend to do something.
Mm.
If I was
Okay.
to speculate, I would say it probably would not come back as
In the same form?
encompassing as it did last session.
Okay. It was pretty harsh.
Any
Yeah.
other?
Oh, sorry,
Go ahead.
Oh, please.
I was just gonna ask if anybody else had any other questions or comments.
Thank you very much for your time.
I do
Thank you.
appreciate you coming in. If you are available in May, at whatever point you learn more details, we would love to have you here again. Your presence is always appreciated, and this dialogue is very useful to us. And, I thank you for your time commitment tonight. This is a good thing for both of us to hear from each other, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Thank you for coming.
All right, continuing on the superintendent report, we have a Fond du Lac High School 24-hour sing-a-thon, is that right?
Yes, we do. Yes, it starts this Friday at noon. It goes through Saturday at noon at Fond du Lac High School in the PAC and the Commons. And what's really neat about it is, well, first of all, it's gonna be very fun. And it's a number of community groups as well as kids from throughout the district, including the high school students that will be singing. But secondly is, it's a fundraiser for both the Choir Booster organization that does an amazing job supporting music in the Fond du Lac School District. 50% of the raised funds will go there, but then the other 50% will go to something called the Water Project, which is a non-profit organization that provides access to clean, safe, and reliable water across sub-Saharan Africa. So 50% of the funds will go there. And as part of this experience for the kids, particularly at the high school, they were encouraged to, for the last 2 weeks, drink only water, and whatever resources they saved from not purchasing other types of beverages, to donate that and their families to the Water Project. So it's a couple pieces, which I think, so there's the service element to it as well as the wonderful opportunity with music. And people are able to come from the community on Friday from noon to 11 p.m. and from Saturday from 8 a.m. until noon. So it's open to the public as well, and there are some specific times when certain things will be happening, such as an alumni showcase on Friday night from 9:30 to 11 p.m. There's a Mitch Miller sing-along before that from 7 to 8:30 p.m. on Friday night. And then on Sunday morning, Saturday morning, from 9:30 to 10:30, there's a Broadway sing-along, and from 10:30 to 11:30, there's a Disney sing-along. So lots of different opportunities for the community to be part of this as well. So kudos certainly to Corey Schneider and Allison Zeitler for their leadership in this, and to the Choir Boosters for their support, and to certainly all the students that are going to be tired after it, but have a great time as well.
What an ambitious project.
Yeah.
And,
It's very nice.
Nice.
Very
That
nice.
looks like that'd be very entertaining by about
It should be.
8 AM the next morning, right?
Can I just add to that? They are still in need of volunteers. If anybody wants to come and help, they would love it. There's like a 3 AM spot open that I'm considering, but.
What do they need volunteers to do for them?
Concessions, overnight security, volunteer, the pledge table, it's a number of things.
And who would
but-
someone need to contact?
Is it Chad Hambrick, is that?
I believe it is.
I'm,
If you- if
I've
anyone-
got if anybody wants it, just email me. I have the spreadsheet I could send to you if anybody wants to sign up.
Excellent. Well, good luck to that program. That sounds like a novel idea for them.
It's very
First time, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Next, board members, student and staff activities. Why don't I start with you, Ms. Preister?
It is a very busy time of year. Last Monday, enjoyed just a beautiful, beautiful choral concert at St. Pat's by the high school choir, a couple of the high school choirs, or actually 3 of them. That was just a really, really wonderful evening. Thursday, I had the pleasure of attending my first Mr. Fond du Lac competition. That was, talk about guys that put themselves out there. It was a really fun evening and full of laughs, and I really admire what they did.
And a special night for you.
Yeah. Who was
I
the
wasn't going to
winner?
bring that up. But, yeah, my son did win. And then,
Were you a voter?
no, it had nothing to do. I was the one hooting and hollering in the audience. And then on Sunday was Bandorama, and that was another great performance by, 750 kids, so.
Great, thank you. Mr. Strand?
I swung in the Bandorama too. I moved out of town and got back on Saturday night about 10:30, so I had Sunday all day, so.
Nice. Yeah, Bandorama was amazing. And then we had a big wrestling tournament for the younger kids out at the high school a couple weekends ago. The chess tournament for the younger kids just wrapped up at Evans this weekend. That was nice to see everybody come together to do that. And then, yeah, just still touch base with Rosno with PTO. Had some conversations with the officers there, and then did math with kindergartners this time instead of the 5th graders that I normally deal with. So that was fun.
Excellent. Ms. Net?
Nope.
Nothing for me this
I
time.
can't think of anything.
Well, I also got to attend Bandorama, which I thought was better than the last time. It was pretty spectacular. Sounds were great from 5th grade on up. I also got to go see the results of the middle school math competition last week.
I saw the paper.
That was first time I got to see that, and I was very proud of all those kids that took part in that. That was quite a show. And then Thursday, I went to Roberts Elementary and played cribbage with their cribbage club. Students as young as 3rd grade were playing, and they're learning the
Really?
counting and math skills and strategy skills involved with that. They do it during their lunch hour on Thursdays and eat their lunch in the room while they play a game of cribbage against someone. So it was a great outing, and I would urge any of you to think about doing that too, because they really, really appreciate outsiders. The kids get double points if they beat a visitor, so they're very motivated.
Wow.
I might say.
Check that out.
Yes. Okay, with no more board member, student, staff activities, on to additional appropriate matters. And tonight we have listed discussion of transgender considerations. Initiator is Board Member Breister. And Ms. Breister, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you for putting this on the agenda. I asked that this be put on the agenda not because I expect us to take a vote or institute a policy or anything like that in a week, but 3 times we've been addressed by students about this matter, and we've heard some very compelling testimony of the challenges that they face at Fond du Lac High School. And I think it's important that we talk about what the district is doing now, what the issues are as we move forward, and then some kind of a timeline for our own discussion on this. I know that we've talked about reviewing policies this summer, but I question whether that's soon enough to do some of the things that we need to do as a district to support these students. I know there are court cases that are pending. But there certainly are a number of districts in Wisconsin that already have policies supportive of transgender students that go beyond their bullying policy. There was a recent story that came out where some of the superintendents from these districts were interviewed, and they were asked if they were going to rescind their policies in light of what the Trump administration has done to rescind the order. And they said, no, they were not going to do this because, and I quote, because it's the right thing to do. I guess I heard you, Jim, on the radio today, being interviewed and talking about this, and some of the things that I heard you say there I thought were, very interesting and informative, and I think that that would be a really good place for us as a board to start, like what is being done administratively and what is the board's role in this as we go forward. I guess I have a lot of questions. Are we going to form a committee to look at this from a policy standpoint? Will we, will students be part of this? I know we have, and forgive me for going on a little long here, but we have 5 policies that deal with harassment, bullying, and student protection. Only one of these, though, I believe, lists protections based on gender, and that's the bullying ordinance. The others prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation, and in the research I've done, they make it clear that protections for sexual orientation are not the same as protections for gender identification. So I don't think the 5 policies that we sometimes cite that we say address this, that they do in the way in which we think they might. Students have come to us and said that they feel harm, and I guess I just feel strongly that we need to move up a timeline to address this issue. Let's see. I think that's all I wanted to
Okay.
say.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
And I know, Dr. Sieber, you and I have had brief discussions on what does the board need to know, what do we need to learn about before we make an informed decision on any policy changes, and where are we at right now administratively with what actually occurs when we run into these situations?
Sure, that's a fair question. So what has happened at the high school is they've tried to deal with students on a case-by-case basis, try to work with families as well in these situations, and provided a single stall restroom available within the nurse's office. So that's what has happened to date. And as the kids have pointed out, Mrs. Sheridan and I did meet with them and their advisors last week to learn a little bit more and talk about 2, if you will, simultaneous tracks. One being the board policy, which we have several policies that I feel my job is to get you all the information you need to be able to think about that, and there's a lot of moving parts right now on a state and federal level as we try to gather that information. But then secondly is to figure out are there things that we can do to help kids have a great experience and be inclusive of all kids while also protecting the privacy rights of all of our students at the same time. And I think that's an important distinction. So with that being said, we talked a little bit about last week when we met with the kids and the advisors, if those words, gender identity and gender expression, were added to the policy, what does that mean to you, or what do you think that would mean? And the things that came up were that teachers would be expected to use their preferred pronouns as well as their preferred names and not their dead name or name that they're given at birth. So with that, I think we would need some professional development that doesn't necessarily come natural to many of us. And I think teachers would need support with that. And I think we need a very clear parent role in that, in terms of what parents are comfortable with. Number 2 was that all of the staff bathrooms, as you heard tonight, would be turned into gender-neutral restrooms. That is something that we can think about. We do have one, as we've talked about, within the nurse's office. I think there's pieces to think about with that as well. The restrooms are currently all locked during the day. If those were all opened up, we just need to think about what does that look like, and how do we, what what does that mean for the staff, and what does that mean ultimately then for who gets to use those in security? Correct. So that's another piece. And then the third thing that was talked about during the meeting was that students that identify as either a trans man or a trans woman would be allowed to use the large restroom facilities of their choice, so the multiple purpose or stall restrooms. And so I think that's certainly another piece that would take some deep discussion by the board to understand if that's, those policies, those terms were added to the policy, that potentially that would be opening the district up to that. And what does that mean in terms of going back to being inclusive but protecting the privacy rights of all students? Because currently we can see across the country there are lawsuits on both sides of this issue. So lawsuits from transgender students who are being denied access to facilities, and lawsuits from students who are pushing back against transgender, and families pushing back against students of a transgender basis that are in locker rooms or restroom facilities. So as you're well aware, the Trump administration guidance is very different than the President Obama guidance, and there are several pieces that are hanging out there now, potentially in circuit court and potentially rising up to the Supreme Court, as well as Mr. Turgello mentioned the Representative Kramer bill that may come here in Wisconsin. So there's a lot to consider, obviously.
Right. And I don't know if we're any further ahead than we were a year ago when the topic came up, quite frankly. I would say we're actually in more of a flux than we were then, because now we do have lawsuits both directions, where I don't think we had that a year ago. So, and my concern, what if it's inserted into our policy, what does that require us to do? What does it prohibit us from doing? What does it preclude us from doing? Does it make it necessary for us to do some modifications to, facilities and such that we're not aware of yet? I don't think any of that is totally clear at this point, at least. And so, district-wide, I just don't know what it includes or excludes. And that's my concern right now of inserting that language into our non-discrimination. Does it potentially, do we insert it, does it potentially make us discriminatory suddenly thereafter?
So, I think right now, we need just some concrete guidelines of what students can do at the high school.
And I think administratively, we will continue to work toward what we can do, and come up with guidelines that we can all work with and that are manageable. But I'm just not certain on, what an insertion of that language means at this point. I'm not opposed, I'm not gung-ho in favor. I just don't know what it obligates the district to do at that point. Any other thoughts? I think that's what Ms. Preister was hoping to hear from anybody tonight was.
So Dr. Siebert, basically it's a communication too with the high school of what practices should be implemented now, or?
Well, I think as we talked last week, and we're going to meet again next week, Mrs. Sheridan and I are going to go out and meet with the kids and the advisors, and Mrs. Hagan is always part of those meetings, that they believe that they have worked with individual circumstances and families and have provided the option of the nurse's office, single stall facility. So at this point, the things that we're talking about would be, futuristically related. I think what we're doing now is that, and that's met the need up until most recently.
Okay.
Have we looked at ordinances? There are a number of districts that have ordinances that they've put in place, or policies, maybe I shouldn't say ordinance, policies. Have we looked at those to see, what they're doing and talked with them, what's working, what's?
And I think that's a good point, that we should bring that forth as something more for us to examine. I agree with that. And
We have multiple samples of policies,
Okay.
certainly, that we can share. From the GSAFE organization, which the students
Mhm.
have shared with us, which is helpful.
I did have a chance to talk with some other superintendents and board members at the WASB conference in January, and what I heard a lot of was that a lot of this was kind of a case by case, you know, they didn't have a general, everybody should be doing this kind of a
Mhm.
policy, just because these kids' individual needs are so different from one
Mhm.
another even, so.
Yeah, and I've noticed, I mean, even there's a nice handbook that the federal education department put out when this was put in place, talking about policies, and they enumerate policies across the country that have been effective. And one of the things that they advocate is devising an individual plan for that student so that staff and students and administrators know, well, not students, but that the people who need to know what that plan is, so that the student is taken care of. So if the student, for example, if the plan is that the student can use faculty restrooms, the faculty know that and allow that student access to them if that's part of their plan. Which seems to be in line with what you're saying. I mean, and there's case by case, but then there's also, I still think we want to not ignore the general support part of this, which is where I think the board comes in with maybe some policy language.
I got just two things. I've heard they've made reasonable accommodations, and then I hear tonight when they spoke, they didn't. So, let's clarify that. I mean, I was under the impression that the reasonable accommodations were made for the bathrooms, and if they had it in the math pod and they had to go down and use the bathroom when they were late for class, get a tardy slip, it's not the end of the world, right?
Sure.
Okay, so let's put that one to bed. The other thing is, until such time we get some more definitive answers as far as the cases that are out there, the other thing is, it says right here, regardless of whether such terms are added to the policies, the district has an obligation to make sure that transgender students, like all other students, are able to learn in a safe environment, free from bullying and harassment. And the district should obviously investigate the complaints and to its reasonable conclusion, take appropriate action. It doesn't matter, you know, if they're being harassed and bullied, it gets investigated, but there's a reporting mechanism for that.
Mr. Sheridan was very clear on
So,
that point.
you know, if they don't tell us things are going on, you can't investigate. So, I guess what I'm saying is, all students are covered for that stuff, no matter what the issues are. So, you know, so let's make that clear, but just let's make sure that reasonable accommodations are being made until such time we get something more definitive, some guidance on it, because let's just say we do something, and then all of a sudden the court's rule, because it'll probably wind up going to Supreme Court, and then they'll rule, and then we wind up having to maybe change it again. So I think it'd be more prudent to just wait for some more definitive stuff, so we can make an informed decision. But in the meantime, make reasonable accommodations for them. And they're covered as far as harassing and bullying and everything else, but they gotta report it if in fact that's going on, in order to have something done about it. Is that correct, Mary? So, you know, that's pretty much common sense, but you gotta tell us about it in order for it to get something done about it.
Okay. Any comments from this side? Marks?
No, I agree with what Mark said, that, you know, we should follow what is in the policy that is in place now for all students, but it sounds like the high school is attempting to do that.
I think so.
And so if we follow through on that for the time being, that would be my approach also. And work on policy in the summer when some of these issues have been clarified.
Okay.
And it wouldn't hurt to check out other
Yeah.
district's policies, and when W would ASB have like a?
I'm sure they.
They
bank
do,
of-
they do. I think they actually shared some several months ago when this was a much larger topic because of the rules that were in place, but they did.
But also the policy for non-discrimination, that last paragraph talks about administration has the right to intervene on issues that aren't the typical ones, correct? That last paragraph of it?
I'd have to look at it, but
I looked at it today.
Yeah.
You know, only because it's you know, in the event that something else, whatever, administration has the right to intervene until such time you would, you know, so there is a catch-all to that.
Sure, that's a great point.
Any other remarks? Ms. Preister, anything else you want to hear from us, or?
No, I appreciate the board taking the time to discuss this. I know we've had long meetings, but I think it's important that the students know that we support them, and it sounds like, you know, if the administration continues to work with the students on a case-by-case basis now while we move forward with looking at policies and trying to put something in place, I think
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
And
You know,
as things change, I assume we will be updated and, you know, keep fully informed on, you know, what the status is either at the high school or at the legal levels.
Sure.
Mr. Strand, I'm sorry I cut you
No,
off.
I'm just saying, you know, this is, you know, the world we live in now, whether it be, you know, that's why we took the action with the interpreters that we did, because, you know, we have when issues come up, we do something about it. But with this thing, until such time it gets a little more definitive, because there's several court actions that are out there, and hopefully it'll get resolved, and we can move ahead probably sooner than later, maybe by summer or what have you. So
Okay.
I'm just afraid if we put something together and maybe something else happens with the courts, then we have to maybe tweak it or something, and I would say maybe more prudent to wait
Okay.
until such time. But again, you make reasonable accommodations so that, because this is a, you know, I don't wanna, you know, they always say it's fluid. Well, it is.
I guess in response to that, you know, my thought is that while there's so much going on, and, you know, court cases can drag on for a very, very long time. And I'm not sure it's always right to wait until everything is resolved and then follow what happens. I understand that there are many moving pieces, but I also think that doesn't necessarily preclude us from taking more of a lead on this issue. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay.
Well, I'm not opposed to see what other districts are doing. Just take a look
Okay.
at it.
And I think our administrators are informed in that area and will continue to do so. If there are policies or practices elsewhere that we should be made aware of, feel free to share those with us too. If there's no further discussion right now, okay, we'll close the additional appropriate matters. And we'll now have our second audience to visitors and delegations. If anyone wishes to address the board, please step forward and do so.
Hello for the sixth time. Hi. I'd just like to point out Representative Kramer's bill was shot down in a joint resolution in 2015, and it did not make it to the floor, mainly because it was very transphobic and because of the protests. And that was also co-sponsored by our very own Jeremy Thiesfeld. So. Also to that point, to see movement on that would be very interesting, provided that they did have another year to bring it back, especially in 2016, where it was a very contested year for that. So it might see some movement this year, but not necessarily as much as some people hope in on one side. Also, to assume that the nurse's bathroom was recently considered unisex or gender neutral would be incorrect, because that has always been gender neutral, because it's forced gender neutral, because there's only space for one bathroom. Also, the attendance policy at the high school would be very strict. So going down to the office to use the restroom and going back would take about 10 minutes. And to be honest with you, it would be more beneficial to skip class rather than go get a pass, because you're going to be tardy. And if you have to use the bathroom every day, and you do that 180 days of the year, say you do it every day during the same period, you have 180 marks on your attendance. So, and there's not really any way to excuse that, because you're marked late regardless. So I would just like to point that out. Also, talking about this to the family might be detrimental to the student, because the student may not be out to their parents. And I know that there could be a legal issue there, but if they do not feel safe at home, they should at least feel safe at school. I don't think that's very unreasonable to ask. Also, just want to check that if there is a court case that is pending, why do we have to wait? And I know things could change, and that's very apparent. But why don't we fight for what's right for students? If it comes down in favor of the other side, not trans students, why don't you fight for trans students instead of laying down, is the question that I pose to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further statement?
No?
Okay. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Oh, I was posing a question.
We don't.
Understand?
We don't.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer at this
We
point.
No, don't have an answer. All
We
right.
don't reply.
I think you've,
Okay, you don't?
you've heard a lot of our positions.
We follow up.
Any other people who wish to address the board?
I'm Sue Heitzman, 209 East Division. I teach at the Fond du Lac High School. First, I want to echo what Robbie says, excuse me, about the tardies. The tardy slips themselves say too many tardies may result in, I don't know, a referral, a disciplinary action, you know, and that's there. It's put in by the machine. It's not something that I, as the teacher, can go back and change. And yeah, when a student needs to use the bathroom, they need to use the bathroom. If it is, as Robbie pointed out, the same teacher, the same class period every day, some teachers are very understanding about that. Some are less so. And I just think that needs to be taken into account as well. The reporting of harassment puts the burden on the victim. When my son was in middle school, he was harassed, and you know, we went to the principal. The vice principal told us to document everything. So my son is supposed to stop in the hallway after he's harassed, get out his notebook, write it down, date, time, here's what happened, here's the situation, and then be late to class. Oh, I'm sorry I'm late, I was documenting harassment. You know, it puts the burden on the victim. And if this is happening to one student on a frequent basis, that's a lot of time. Even if the kid gets into the class and starts writing it down, you know, some teachers will say, we don't need to be writing right now. So there needs to be understanding that way. The discussion that I'm hearing here reminds me of things I've heard about from the 1940s and 50s with the civil rights. We don't want blacks in the same bathroom as my kids. And the last thing that I want to say is Fond du Lac has been proud to be a lead in PBIS, standards-based grading, high reliability schools, youth mental health awareness, trauma-sensitive schools, and probably a whole slew of other programs. Why not be a leader in this as well? set an example. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Hi for the sixth time. There are multiple points that I'd like to address that came up in the conversation regarding transgender accommodations. First of all, it was unclear on what we wanted. If gender identity and gender expression were to be put in the anti-discrimination policy. First of all, we would want people to use our pronouns and names. Teachers currently can refuse to use a name that a student wants to be called. And that is something that we can't do anything about legally, because it's not bullying and it's not harassment. It's discrimination. And by not having that in the policy, you're saying that's okay. And there have been multiple reports at Fond du Lac High School of teachers refusing to use a student's name or pronouns that they would like. Second of all, we would like gender-neutral bathrooms. As stated previously, we came up with the idea of staff bathrooms being converted into gender-neutral bathrooms. Currently, most of the staff use the normal bathrooms that students use because they're bathrooms. You go in there to do your business, wash your hands, and leave. You don't worry about who else is in there. So, by having access to gender-neutral bathrooms, not only can transgender students use those, but also students with anxiety who find themselves unable to use multi-stall bathrooms, and students who may feel unsafe in bathrooms, whether due to trauma or rape or anything in between. I know a common concern in that is sex happening in the gender-neutral bathrooms. And to that I reply, what is stopping people now from using the multi-stall bathrooms for sex? And then something that we discussed in the meeting with Dr. Siebert and Marian Sheridan is having lockers in gender-neutral restrooms closest to the gyms, because there isn't any room or any space that we could put gender-neutral locker rooms in the gym hallway. So our next best option would be to put them in a gender-neutral bathroom. Obviously, that doesn't entirely solve the problem, but it's a step toward the right direction. Currently, I am in gym and I have to go to the commons and use the girls' restroom there and change in a stall. And I have dropped my clothes in the toilet, and it sucks. Those are the main things that we discussed in our meeting with Dr. Siebert and Marian Sheridan. And obviously we have the nurses' restroom, which is gender neutral by design. But that's for sick kids who are vomiting or have trouble with their bladder or have trouble using their bowels. Like, using that bathroom takes out of my class time. Because if I have to walk from the math pod to the nurse's office and back again, I just missed almost half the class, because I have to wait for anyone in there to be done too, because I don't want to bar someone from vomiting in there. And honestly, it's humiliating. And then finally, putting gender identity and gender expression into the anti-discrimination policy does not equal the bathroom bills that are currently going on. Most of the lawsuits that I know of deal with bathroom usage, not discrimination and anti-discrimination policies. So honestly, you're policymakers. If you have to change a policy, it's your job. So you shouldn't be lazy and just go with the flow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board? Okay. Seeing none, we will close the audience to visitors and delegation. And this time, we will look for a motion to go into workshop session.
I move to adjourn the regular meeting and convene in a workshop to discuss the shared leave program proposal and to discuss Chapter 5 of the key work of school boards.
Second.
Motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the vote?
Strand.
Yes.
Uselman.
Yes.
Preister.
Yes.
Hayes, yes. Jones.
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
Georgella.
Yes. We'll stand adjourned until the workshop. Thank you. To order, and clerk, please take roll.
Preister.
Here.
Hayes here. Jones.
Here.
Nat.
Here.
Strand.
Here.
Uselman.
Here.
Georgella.
Here. All members are present. And first item is a discussion of the shared leave program proposal, which the committee came forward with, and Ms. Simon was a spectacular leader of the committee. And what do you have to present to us?
You have 3 documents in front of you tonight that we'll discuss, but before that, we have our committee here with us. Many members of the committee are here with us tonight, and as it's stated here, we have met 4 times. Actually, it's a very great working group, and we had all employee groups represented. But with us here tonight are Laura Murphy, Jenny Seiler, Stephanie Fox, Eileen Shapiro, Matt Steinbarth, Wendy, and Mark Georgella. So those not here that I'd like to talk or announce also were Mike Mullenbach, Julie Greening, and Sean Bauer. Did you find that? So, all right. So when we got together the first time, we talked about the purpose and the goals of the Shared Leave program, which you have in front of you. So we decided it was to determine if a shared leave program meets the needs of the district and the district staff. And it was to establish guidelines on how things would be done. And we felt it would help to retain employees. It met the Cardinal family mission. It would help our employees who don't have enough sick leave. And we had to come up with some guidelines, yet remain fiscally responsible to the district, and then honoring those who don't abuse sick leave as it is intended. So in front of you, because you didn't see this prior, we'll just go through it point by point, and then we can have discussion. So immediately upon employment, every employee is eligible to participate in the program, and it will be voluntary, and it'll be case by case. So then the eligibility requirements are, it's for the employee, himself or herself, a spouse, or a child under 18 for whom the employee is a legal guardian. Shared leave can only be accessed for catastrophic events outside of the employee or the child or spouse's control as determined by a team consisting of the superintendent, director of human resources, and the director of business services. Shared leave may only be accessed once during an employee's career. If they resign and are rehired, it's still once. Shared leave may be used only by those who do not qualify for workman's compensation or unemployment pay. And shared leave may be used by those who are not eligible or not yet eligible for long-term disability. So for contributing to the shared leave, donations will be requested if and when a qualifying event occurs. An employee wishing to contribute must have at least 70 sick days of his or her own. An employee may contribute up to 2 days per case, and a lottery system will be used to select the days to be utilized. And only employees whose names are chosen will have the sick leave deducted from their balances. Anybody have any questions on that? The reason we chose 70 sick days is because people are eligible for long-term disability on day 60 of their, day 61 of their absence. So we wanted to build in a cushion.
Make anybody go down beyond that.
Right, we wanted to build in the cushion because otherwise we'd be just swapping days. So if you are,
What if they're taking care of somebody who's ill, they don't really get disability, then say they have an ill child? Could they have more then, or how would that work?
That's discussed in the next.
Okay.
yep. This is for the people that are contributing, the people that want to give sick leave.
I see that you have something in there about only being able to access it once. So if I have a heart attack and then I later have a stroke, too bad.
Well, for you, though, for most people, they have enough sick days. If you look, we have, at this point, out of the 800 employees, we have 248 employees that have 70 or more sick days. And as you can see, our staff is becoming younger and younger. So,
And I think part of this too, Peggy, was that we wanted to start out with the program being small to see what actually occurs. Instead of making it expanded and then maybe having it cost more than we ever expected. So
'Cause
this is gonna be subject to review at some point again, based on our experiences.
and we took the average, what we thought like was the average salary, because as you'll see, we're gonna pay at 75%. So the average employee, if they access the bank for 30 days, will be $10,000. It'll cost the district approximately $10,000 by the time we are done giving that stipend and paying a sub to replace that person. So depending on how many of those we have in a year, it could really add up. So that was our logic. And as Mark talked about, we kind of wanted to keep it tighter. We can always revisit it and open it up wider, so.
And now you also, during the committee, we said we may have had as many as possibly 8 people making claims potentially.
Correct, this year.
So that would have been 8 times 10,000 would have been $80,000, and as Sharon said, that would be a teacher position benefits.
Theoretically, though, other people are trading their sick days in for these people, so is there savings in that way down the road further, or not? Does it not? How does it not? Why does it not trade off? Can I?
Yeah, right.
You mean, what do you mean by, I'm not?
Because they don't have their days anymore. Is that
The people who donate the days no longer have the sick days.
Right.
To use for themselves.
Right.
So
But-
that would be a cost that wouldn't be incurred later, or is that
Well,
making sense at all?
Well, we have, I'm trying to think here, we have 78 employees. You don't use them, you don't, they just fall off the back end after 140. People don't get paid out in the end for them. So sick days really, and I guess when we.
Okay, so we're thinking that these sick days that are being donated were not likely to be used anyway, is what we're, okay,
Correct.
gotcha.
Right,
Oh, okay.
right. That is the thinking.
Okay.
There's no payout for sick days
No.
in the district?
Mm-mm,
Okay.
Do they get a deduction on their insurance for this?
no. Okay, accessing shared leave days. People have to use all their discretionary leave before they can ask for shared days, and that includes vacation, because we have several employee groups that have vacation. And then we put in there that emergency days are not considered discretionary time. A request must be made to the superintendent in writing, and then they would be allowed up to 30 days of sick leave, which is 6 weeks, in 6 weeks worth of time. All shared days would be paid at 75% of the requesting person's salary. And then finally, currently, under FMLA, an employee may use up to 10 days of his or her own leave. So if it's for somebody other than yourself, you can use 10 days for
100%.
well, for a child.
FMLA.
Separate, if you're eligible for FMLA. So if you're using your own, it's paid at 100%. And then after that, under the proposal, for those employees who have available sick leave, the employee may use up to an additional 38 days of his or her own sick leave, which will be paid at 75%.
Bless you.
So I think we need to clarify that this is for the situation when it's a spouse or a child.
Yeah, we can add that in there.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
I mean, it's pretty simple to start, and it's more than we have now.
Mhm.
Right.
And the hope is that no one ever has to use it, but it'll be in place.
Computer set up to do this?
Well, this is what we're gonna do. Are you talking about the lottery system?
Yeah, and then,
So how the lottery system would work, we'd send out a Google form, people would sign up, because the one thing the group wanted to do was make this as simple as possible too, because otherwise we have a lot of a secretarial time put into a sick leave program, or shared leave program as we called it. So they would do most likely a Google form, we just pick numbers out of a hat, and then what if your day got if your day got picked that you would donate, we would let you know that it was donated and it would be taken off your sick leave. And then we would just have a whole list of people's names by the number that they were randomly assigned. And we'd go through everybody one time before the second day got used.
But can I just ask you this?
Mhm.
So, after a catastrophic event,
Mhm.
I could request up to 30 sick days, and I would make that, would I ask that through you?
Through the
Would-
superintendent.
Through the superintendent?
Mhm.
And then, would he have staff reply to him that they were offering me some sick leave?
What would happen is we would probably put a blanket statement out, just saying we're in need of sick leave,
Okay.
shared leave, who's interested in donating.
And would they use my name?
No.
Okay.
Unless we would ask the person, for privacy's sake, if somebody wanted to have their name, they could attach their name,
Okay.
but
But
it would
then,
not.
if someone gave me a day of their sick leave,
Mhm.
even if they were a veteran teacher with, say, with years of experience, their day would only count to me as 75%.
70% of your salary.
Say that again.
So it's your salary, so let's say, because everybody has different salaries, so some people, because the employee groups make different rates of pay. So
Right.
somebody could end up making more at 100%, or more than they would normally make. So we
Oh,
made
I
it
see.
that person's, at 75% of your daily salary,
Okay.
or your daily rate of pay.
All right.
what if somebody wants to just donate on principle and not for anybody specific, or, they wanna contribute to the bank, so it's there ahead of time?
It's
Can
not a
somebody do
bank.
that? You
It's
can't
not a
do that?
bank, we're doing it case by case.
Yeah, we had
Because
that
that's what
discussion.
adds administrative work when we
Okay.
keep track. Doing it case by case saves on administrative time.
But that was part of the discussion, and the case by case is much simpler.
I was just wondering, yeah.
Did you have a question?
So does everybody think, you get to use it once, that's our starting point with this. And we'll see what our experiences show, how it gets used, if it gets used.
Looks like the committee did a lot of
And the number of
A lot of
days.
hard work and,
Nice.
yeah.
It was really a nice committee. They worked together very well. Everybody shared their thoughts and their ideas, and I think this is the first time that I've been on a committee where every employee group was represented. Because like I told the group, we normally meet with teachers, or we meet with instructional assistants and secretaries, or we meet with custodians. Very rarely do we meet as a whole group, so it was really nice. Number one, people get to meet each other. I know basically everybody, and they got to meet new people by being on the committee, and they all were contributors to it, so it was really exciting. And Sean and Eileen have a lot of knowledge that they were able to share, because everything comes through those offices on leave, and so it was really a really nice group to work with. I can't say that I was sad when we had meetings, because it was fun to get together and talk with them, because every one of them was productive, and we moved forward quickly.
Right. Yeah, are there any areas of concern from anybody who's
So
looked at
this will
this right
be
now?
next fiscal year, this will go into effect then?
That's what we're proposing, yeah.
Okay. When did you first come to us with this, Mrs. Fox?
It was in the fall, September, October.
Okay.
I think it's really important because, you know, let's say somebody at somebody's particular school. I mean, we have it in the county, because our county family is like 4,000 people. When somebody winds up having cancer and loses all their time, we can donate as much as we want. I usually donate a week's, I don't get all my vacation anyway, because I got a lot of it. So you always donate 10 days, and you just go and fill out a slip up in HR, and it doesn't matter. They just tell us somebody needs it, and you just fill out a slip
Right.
for 80 hours, and that way they keep their insurance up, all that stuff. And I mean, it's really important, because if somebody from a particular school, you know, especially if that school is their direct family.
Right.
And the whole district is their family too, so it's, you count your blessings, you never have to use it, you know.
Why did you decide to limit it to 2 days per case? What was that?
Because, yeah, we think we have more than enough days. If
Really?
we have we have 78 employees that have 140 days or more. So every year, they go down to 140. At the beginning of the year, they either get 10 or 12 sick days, so
Oh,
they
so
go
you just
back
think
up to 150.
automatically they'll,
Why wouldn't they? They have nothing.
yeah.
I mean, anybody over 70, basically.
Not much to lose, really.
No,
Yeah.
well, I would say, yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay, I get.
that was our reasoning, is there's really, because you keep getting them.
Yeah.
And unless something really happens.
If you were to find that for some reason that wasn't enough and someone wanted to donate 10 to somebody, do you think that's a discussion that you would look at in the future?
I
I mean,
think if
it
there
doesn't
was-
sound like it's gonna be an issue, but,
I think if that exception came up, it maybe would have to come to us at some point, perhaps.
And to be honest,
Yeah.
Peggy, this is what most districts have done.
It's
What we've
true.
seen 1 or 2 days. So I
Okay.
think we went on
Well,
that
again,
principle.
yeah, okay.
We looked at how
You
many.
can always
Say it's
go take that
per
step
basis.
later,
Right.
if you
Per
see the
event.
need,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So with all the employees that they counted, there should be plenty of volunteers, they're thinking. So I was real happy with this committee. They put together some
Thank
good
you all for
ideas
your
and
work.
made it very understandable.
Well done, everybody. Do
Very
we-
simple, yes,
we
applause.
Yes.
Yeah,
very nice,
good.
very nice.
Thank you.
We anticipate adding this to the handbook.
Yes.
Reference to it.
Right.
So in response to your question, if changes were needed to be made, it would be through the handbook renewal process, so
Very
that the
good.
board would
Okay.
have
Thanks
Very
for bringing
good.
that forward.
autonomy there.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's important.
yeah, I mean, thanks for bringing it up. I don't know that we would have been this aware of it otherwise,
Yeah.
so good job there and getting it moving forward. So,
All right, thanks.
thank you, Sharon,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Wendy. All right,
thank you, committee.
job well done, committee.
Yes, very nice.
Okay, the shared leave proposal is covered. Does anybody have anything they wish to say about discussing Chapter 5 of the
I would
key
like to
work?
make a motion that we table this
I'll second that.
until the next meeting. Only-
Stand by, let me record this.
We can't have a short discussion, no?
I mean, I read it,
It was a good
highlighted it all,
chapter.
I'm all ready. But I mean,
I was cool with it,
I think we need at least a couple hours for chapter 5.
Oh, gosh, Peggy.
Well, we could,
Actually,
we could do it quick on April 10th.
we
if that's
could
okay
do
with
it
you.
in the, do you want, you can leave the meeting early if you don't want to do it next time.
Yeah, I'm
You know?
kind of done with it.
You
could
can
submit a
No,
written
no,
book
wait a minute.
report for
I-
this.
I
Okay,
want
so
a-
you-
I want a book report the next time.
So we have a motion to table until April 10th? Is that what you're saying, Mark, till April 10th?
Yeah, I mean,
I may
Well-
just
this will
sit
be
on it
quick,
just
but I
for
just,
shits and
we've been
giggles.
bogged
Okay.
down with a lot of stuff.
Does anybody have any discussion? We have it seconded?
I'm not, yeah.
Okay. All right, can you call a vote, please, Ms. Hayes?
Wait, who made the motion again?
Strand,
Strand and
Oh, yeah.
table,
Brewster
and then Brewster seconded.
We're voting
Very
on
quickly.
tabling right now?
We're voting to table to the April 10th meeting.
Gosh, I actually was on time and on top of it. So. It has been a long day.
It has.
I'm sad that our visitors left before they saw that it can take 10 months to get a policy right, though.
We lost 3 cars over the weekend, so it was a busy day.
Lost 3 cars?
They, cracked them off.
Yeah.
Really? Anybody hurt?
Until April 10th meeting.
Correct.
Mhm.
Guy was going to Berkeley.
So do you want me to put a?
Yeah, call the vote on that.
10 miles an hour hit the deer.
Oh, yikes.
Just a car.
Oh, man. And the deer, I'm sure.
Brewster,
Yep.
Hayes, yes. Jones?
Yes.
Knapp?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Uselman?
Yep.
Churchella?
Yes, motion carries. That item will be tabled until the April 10th meeting. At this point, we'll take a motion to
I
adjourn.
move to adjourn the workshop.
Second?
Motion by
Hold it.
Jones, seconded by Uselman. Okay, take the vote for the adjournment.
Okay, just that. Jones and Uselman.